Good morning. Clear my throat. My name is Kirsty Dignam, and I'm here to look at the weekly energies. Pause. Slow down. Why are we here this week? What is it we are sharing? It's not about slowing down for those externally that are watching, but for us to feel in to what it is we are claiming we are doing and whether or not we are aligned to that. So let's start again. My name is Kirsty Dignam. As always, I'm here to look at the weekly energies and how to best navigate them. It's not about prediction. I'm not here to tell you things that are going to happen. I'm not here to control what it is you do with the information given, merely to connect to the energy that is available and some of the things that potentially we could respond to as a result. Today is the 14th of July and it is my late mother's birthday. She would have been 70 today, and I can really feel that in my own emotional core. There's something very surreal about the non-physical existence of what gave you life that helps to really connect to creativity itself. Regardless of how we may see things, regardless of how we may feel about things, we continue to become who we are because of our environment, because of our surroundings, because of the belief of those before us. I'm reading an incredible book at the moment talking about epigenetics and the impact that is travelled through our DNA, the trauma that is travelled through our DNA. Whether we are the same as our parents or whether we do all we can to not be like our parents, the truth of the matter is there is a root of who we are as a result of those that came before us. And when that energy is no longer there to guide physically, although of course I'm aware of my mother energetically, it can be a very, it's not a lonely path, and it's important to feel into this week. It's not a lonely path. It's not about solitary isolation here. It's not about disconnection from the mother. It's not about being separate from what is being created, but it is a internal, of course, an internal path, which is not something that we don't know. But today in particular, I've been really feeling into how well I know myself without the yearning to be like my mother, who I admire greatly, without the call and responsibility of what a mother entails. My own son has grown and left the nest, without the assumptions and expectations of what it means to work and what that may look like, without the restrictions of how I deliver my own potential. Without those restrictions, of course, my potential expands, but so does my own understanding of it, which comes with a necessary confusion about who we are. We can get so caught up in this is the version of ourselves. You know, today, of the amount of tops that I nearly wore and took off because of an awareness of the impact that they may have on my external environment. For example, one of them was a plain black t-shirt and it just had a skull on that said dark as my soul. And I'm aware that if I'm reading tarot or if I'm in a certain energy, that may conflict what is being portrayed. And that's what we're asking to feel in, being asked to feel into this week. Where are we in conflict with what is being portrayed? The truth of the matter is a t-shirt is a t-shirt, right? But there is that inner conflict in me about how that needs to come across, how I need to come across, which I can recognize with my own spirituality. So this week, feeling into where we may be in division within our own internal path, based on expectations of others, but more importantly, our own understanding of ourselves, okay, and our own understanding of change. As we go into 2026, of course, there has been huge change, but not for some. Not for some. And there will be change for us all as we go into 2026. It is about looking at not how we cope with change, not how we adapt to change, how we integrate change, how we see change itself. So an example, yes, I can say that I at times do not know the version of myself that I'm looking at, but that's because I believe the version of myself was only one form. A lot of low self-esteem can come from trying to figure out who we are without embracing the vastness of that. So where am I going with this? It is our ability to integrate any changes that are going to occur from now until 2026. However, they have their roots and their foundations in things that have happened already. And that may feel as if we want to switch off. I have an overwhelming urge to start this video again because I don't know where it's going, right? But to trust the process, because that's what I've always done. So reclaiming energy and power and things that we have always done for the foundation that it is that's going to give us the structure necessary to integrate the changes that are about to occur or already starting to occur. All in how we see our ability to create with what may be perceived as chaos. Slowing down, looking at where we are aligned with what it is we are intending. So the intention of this video is to read the energies this week, and much as I can be drawn into avenues of everything else that's going on, my own journey included, ultimately coming back to that intention, being very, very clear and focused with that is what's going to be the defining factor between change that may seem out of our control and change that it actually has been created from within first. So why is this important? Why do I just not predict with the tarot? Why do I make it so deep or at times investigative? Why do I not just do as everyone else? And these are questions that are going to come up for us all in our own way. For me, if you seek external guidance continually, what happens if you constantly want answers from an outside source, be that news, relations, our parents, our work, the tarot, what happens there is a disempowering, almost fearful, addictive type relationship, a codependency. Now, it's not, again, about being separate or isolated or alone on this path, but it is about recognizing that the path starts within first. So I can read the tarot and I can say that the tarot means X, Y, and Z. And that actually is very belittling of myself and of the tarot and of anybody watching this, because the tarot themselves, like us all, are a living entity. They are pathways of the soul. They are more than this means this. So are changes. So are our identities. So is everything that we experience. This week we're being guided to really perceive what is occurring, to truly know ourselves, and to recognize that that is an ongoing journey. You know, just when you think you've got it, just when you think everything's in the bag and you know who you are, something will change. And it's not about not knowing, it's not about not trusting what we believed, but being ready to receive the next level. I am going to look into the energies this week, and I'm going to do so briefly. I'm going to do so briefly because, firstly, I'm aware there is a temptation to end up down many rabbit holes this week. Secondly, I am grieving and being aware of that process and how long that needs to take. Being also aware that it seems over the years, regardless of what is going on through the losses that have occurred, grief seems to be a continual thing, because change is a continual thing, and honouring that within me. This week it's really important to do what you need to do to integrate anything that has happened, to do what you need to do to be present with who you are in this moment. Now, that's not to say that there's not potential. That's not to say that things haven't happened. However, if we step out of this present moment, if we do not apply what is going on to what is going in, then that integration can only go so far, which means that change can only go so far, which means that prediction can only go so far, which means that information given can only go so far, which means that vision can only go so far, which means we can only go so far. So this week it's really important to come back to yourself, to come back to your inner tensions, to look at where you may be in conflict with what you are sharing, with what you are hoping to achieve. An example, I have a lot of opportunities going on at the moment, potential opportunities at the moment, which are going to take a leap of faith. And the truth of the matter is, I don't have that esteem at the moment. I don't have that self-esteem because so much has changed. When I look at myself or when I feel into who I am, there's an uncertainty there because there's a newer version of myself. So what am I doing? I'm taking time. I'm allowing those moments to integrate the changes that have happened, and I'm feeding into not just old wounds, but normal uncertainties in the unknown, and knowing that it can be okay to move on with not knowing all we need to know, to continue living and waiting for the answers to come. A lot of the times when people go for tarot readings or watch YouTube videos or try and seek out information about what is happening, it's because there's an impatience there to wait for the answers. There's an impatience there in experiencing what needs to be experienced in order to get those answers. There's a rush of integration. So this morning when I felt into the grief that I could sense and the needing to not separate but go within, ironically, as I travel with the justice card, right, to restore that balance, but not separate, but to go within. When I felt into that, what I saw was the analogy of a newborn child that needs to be held, that needs skin to skin, that needs to be fed, that needs to be nurtured, that needs to be loved. Our ability to integrate change, our ability to evolve, our ability to move through whatever is occurring, whether that's something we're creating, whether that's an ending, whether that's a new beginning, whatever that process may be, is determined by our ability to hold space for ourselves within that. It's not about how well it's done, it's not about the outcome, it's about our enjoyment of the process. I know today if I plow through and try and seek more answers, or do all the work that my head is telling me I need to do to avoid the feelings that I'm feeling, it's going to be painful. Whereas I will do the best that I can do, which is the other thing this week. Think of the 4 agreements. Do your gentle best, be honest with where you are, be authentic. If something doesn't make sense, delve into it further, go beyond the obvious, ask questions, and most of all, for the best will in the world, try not to take things too personally. That doesn't mean don't speak up for where you are, but by speaking up for where you are, rather than taking it in and on board, it can be voiced and it can be cleared this week. Okay, so that's where we're going. I think Mercury is going retrograde this week, so communication is going to be really, really important. Of course, that starts with ourselves. Really feeling into what is going on, really looking at where we may be making the process more painful than it needs to be. And that acknowledgement itself can be difficult to take on board. So often we believe we are doing the quote unquote right thing. However, this week it's about really feeding into the communication that's going on with our body and holding ourselves accountable. There are things that I need to do today according to my mindset. However, my body doesn't want to do them, and that's okay. And I can berate myself and say it's procrastination and it's this and it's that. But I know that by showing up and doing this video the best that I can, I'm doing what I can. This week, there's a real authenticity in acknowledging what we are actually capable of in every moment, releasing the judgment on that. When it comes to self-esteem, if we put things on ourselves that we are unable to achieve, all that does is lower our self-esteem. All that does is reconfirm all the reasons why we can't do things. So all the opportunities that I have at the moment and the low self-esteem that I have behind it are relevant. There are issues like money, there are issues like self-belief, there are issues like whether or not what I provide will actually be needed in that area. And underneath it all is the awareness that for whatever reason, I'm not quite ready yet. And that's okay. Acknowledging that has allowed me not to run ahead, because I don't even know if these options are solid yet, not to run ahead, not to destroy, but to sit with that and just do what I can in those moments. What are my options? What am I capable of? Where am I based at this moment? What is it I'm trying to achieve? We can get so caught up in the larger picture of what is happening that we forget to come back to the present moment and put in solid action steps. And this week, that's going to be the biggest change that we can do in regards to what we're integrating and hoping to shift. Why? Because when we come back to the present moment, when we feel into what is happening, when we have a more fuller, expressive communication with our body, our mind, and our soul, those shifts come with a more grounded energy. When we create, it's not about an idea that stays up in our head. That idea has to come down through our body. When that comes down through our body, 9 times out of 10, most things are healing. Most things will shift. Most things will come with their own consciousness cost, if you will. You know, we can have these wonderful ideas, and then with them we will have doubt, because what that's doing is helping us rebalance and align. And how that does that is through interaction and communication within our system. So whatever you're feeling this week, hold space for that. Recognize that you may feel conflict, but that is an opportunity to integrate to the next level of what it is you're trying to achieve, and be very focused on that this week. 16 minutes in. Okay. Give something a I hear deadline. Give something a chance to give you the information that is required, but not take over this week, so that you don't end up down those rabbit holes of self-sabotage, because that's the other downside towards self-esteem. We can end up trying to seek all the information and all the confidence that we need externally, again, relationships, tarot, videos, whatever, and not actually put in the work ourselves, not actually take those steps ourselves. And what that does is that really lowers our self-esteem, because our self-esteem is built from taking action. So yes, I may not quite know if I'm ready. I may not quite know which opportunity I want to go with. But this morning I have contacted them all to see if there's still an option. Yeah, let's get real here. Let's not end up in our head running away with things that may not even be a potential this week. Very, very important. So back to Mercury in retrograde. Recognizing some of us will create different ways. As you can see, I will go off on a tangent, get all the information and bring it back. Some people are very streamlined and very direct. Recognizing we all deliver differently, we all create in different ways, that is our communication with our divine self, and really honoring and respecting that this week. How? If we don't feel like acting, going into that, sensing what is right for us. If we feel driven and we want to really get out there, sensing what is right for us. With Mercury going retrograde, and obviously all Uranus and Gemini and all that kind of thing, we are talking a lot of communication. We are talking a lot of, again, I hear the word lip service, being, and that's really made my high heart. It's not about judgment here, but if we say or encourage or invite the external to do one thing but are doing something completely different ourselves, that's going to cause a misalignment. That's going to cause a lack of harmony or authenticity within ourselves, and we're going to feel that this week through pressure, through what we believe is external pressure, or communication externally that may not quite be what we had hoped. So an example, this week has been really difficult with my mother's birthday coming up, and it feels like there's been a lot of energy around me that needs clarity, that needs to be gone over with a fine-tooth comb to ensure that everybody knows what is expected. But also there has been a need for compassion on myself and what I'm willing to receive in regards to energy and communication this week. Sense into what is occurring. Speak your truth. Hear it first and speak your truth. Truth is a multifaceted living entity. Okay, so there is no right or wrong way. It's not personal. Remember those four agreements. It's not personal. And the 5th agreement: take everything with a pinch of salt, yourself included. That doesn't mean don't speak it. That doesn't mean don't feel into the communication, but know that what you see, what you perceive, how you create, what you do is different from others, and theirs is different from yours, and allowing space for that, bringing the emphasis and the focus back onto yourself, which full circle, is why I do these weekly readings, which is why I connect to the tarot. It isn't about prediction. It isn't about giving you the answers this week or at any point in your life. It isn't about pushing for you when you're trying to create or deliver. It is about getting that support system in place that is going to help you remain guided, not guarded, in what it is you are here to bring forth. How? By reflecting back where you are. Pure and simple, whatever is going on this week. Now, that doesn't mean to take on the trauma, lessons, wisdom of someone else. That means to see what is going on around you, come back into that inner path, recognizing they're all the same path, but acknowledging which one you're walking by honoring your own truth in that moment. So, okay, energies this week and how to best navigate it. Again, you can really tell I'm working with a Justice card today. And that feels important to acknowledge what energies you're working with, to acknowledge where you are. I'm on the 2nd of August, I'm putting on a get together, and I'm hoping it's going to be the first of many, called a creative expression session, to acknowledge that these things that we feel are not something to placate or even understand. Sometimes we can try and understand things so much that it dilutes the divinity of it. So really looking at why we're trying to understand something. Are we genuinely trying to understand something, whether that's our situation or our relationships, or are we trying to change it? Yeah, so really admitting where we are in our process, whether that's a conversation with ourselves, each other, a video that we're sharing, whatever is going on, really admitting where we are in our process so that we can remain aligned to the intention of it. Yes, I can really feel that I'm with the Justice card. Yes, I can really feel that I'm the energy that I'm working with, and that is going to be very important. Like I say, I'm putting on a creative expression session because this wisdom, these emotions that we feel, is a wisdom. Being able to work with them, first and foremost, we have to know them. We have to be able to see them. We have to be able to feel them. We have to be able to identify them. A lot of creative consciousness remains in the shadows, particularly with the things that we may not want to look at. But if we can bring that forward, it's not about getting rid of it per se. Bringing it forward, making it conscious, is the change itself. So this week, there may be things that come to light, particularly in communications with ourselves and with each other, that may not be what we would like to hear. I don't want to hear that I'm not ready. It's like, what more can I do to feel ready? However, if I don't acknowledge that I don't feel ready, then anything I do is always going to be less than my own potential. So in acknowledging that I don't feel ready, I can support myself through that process, which actually is no different. It doesn't mean not doing the process. It just means being aware of the energy that I'm working with when I do it. So, if no one turns up to something, I can think, well, yeah, that's because I didn't feel ready. And actually I'm having a secondary gain of no one turning up because I don't feel ready. So I share that example because it's really important to acknowledge the energy we're working with in something. Not about fixing it. It's not about judging it. It's not about trying to control it, but listening to where we're at. It is the middle road of where we want to be. It is the journey of where we've been. It's so important. Sitting with that, integrating that, nurturing that, feeding that as if it was a newborn child, because it has come as a result of change, whether we like it or not, whether it's been positive or how we see it negative change. Where we're at is a result of it. So it is the new version of ourselves that has been born through whatever has occurred. Feed it, nurture it, take care of it. I think I've got birds or something out on the roof outside. Okay, so energies this week and how to best navigate them. 24 minutes in. There's that energy again of the deadline. It's not a deadline, it's about how much time we're willing to give to a process. When we acknowledge how much time we're willing to give to a process, what we're actually saying is how high it is on our priorities and how much that means to us. And that can be a hard understanding of something, but it makes it no less relevant. I'm avoiding the word true. Okay, so this week we may be confused with what is true and what is real. What matters is what is relevant. What is relevant to you? And you will be able to define that in the amount of time that you give it and the priority that you give it. That is going to come with some sharp edges to it, you know, our self-care, our own health, our own integration, our own process. If we're not willing to give that time, then how important are we to ourselves, and what impact does that have on our self-esteem and our authenticity? So many times I say, high heart voice again. So many times I see many healers who don't have time to heal themselves, or many readers who are unsure of what's going on for themselves because they're unaware of themselves, or many leaders who struggle to lead their own direction. And that doesn't come with judgment, but reflection. I see you. I'm there. I do it. It's okay to admit that. In admitting that, in showing our flaws, not for the world to see, but for ourselves, where we may not quite be at our greatest potential, we can give ourselves what we need in order to ensure that we are. Okay, energies this week and how to best navigate it. Well, acknowledging what it is we need to navigate. It's one thing to look at the energies of the week and how to best navigate them, but what is it we're looking at navigating? What is it we are actually experiencing? And from where? Earlier on there, I knocked the picture of Mary Magdalene in front of me. I knocked it and it's skewiff. And much as I've straightened the picture, I can't seem to get the image out of my head. And it feels quite relevant to acknowledge some things that have stayed in our mindset, no matter what we've tried to do. Doesn't mean that they necessarily need fixing or altering, but acknowledging that they're still in our mindset. And that feels ancestral. Also, acknowledging what we are carrying. And it's not about always getting rid of it, but working with it. For every wound, there is medicine, right? For every lesson, there is wisdom. For every skewiff picture, there is the ability to straighten it. But we have to see it first, yeah? We have to be aware that it's still there. Okay, energies this week. Relaxing the shoulders, letting go of the tension. The tension is coming from expectation. The expectation is coming from apprehension. The apprehension is coming from a lack of belief based on the past. And the difference between that and the future. When we come back to the present moment, that is the bridge, right? We can acknowledge how far we've come. Yes, we will see the steps that still need to be taken, but they will be done from the wisdom that we've gained, not the pain that caused it. Okay, energies this week and how to best navigate them. Yeah, so at the nine of wands, at the bottom of the pack, we have the 9 of wands here. There is still this defensive energy. And the defensive energy is what is actually causing the reason to be defensive. I was talking to a beautiful dear friend last week, and they were saying about how they were in less pain when they were surrounded by people that were open, that were enjoying life, and some of the health concerns that they had were no longer as apparent. And it wasn't that these people were healers, much as they were, because they were open. Not because they'd been to any school or because they'd learned anything, but because they were open. They were open and they were connected to their own heart space. They were open and they were connected to their self. And, you know, when we are in that space, our highest potential just flows. So you can call that healing, you can call that psychic, you can call that magical, whatever name you want to give it. And you may need to go to someone to help you bring that out in you by reflecting back who you are. But no one can teach you. It's about being open to who you are. While this particular soul was surrounded by people that were open to who they were and open to life and open to the experiences of it, regardless, and perhaps even because of some of the despair that they had encountered throughout the years. Being in that energy, I need to take this on board myself for a moment. Yeah. It makes me quite emotional. Being in that authentic energy had such an impact on this person that their pain was less. And their pain was less not because of these people, but because of the safety her body felt. Big light just went by. Her soul felt to be who she was. So the pain of restricting, of pulling back, was less. And her flow continued, which brought its own healing of alignment. This week, ensuring that you are, it's not, when I say that the reason for defensiveness has become the very thing that makes us be defensive in the first place, it's not about letting go of the pain. It's not even about boundaries, guys. It's really not about boundaries this week. It's about how open you are with yourself and life and the experiences. And I appreciate that some of them are heart-wrenching. I appreciate that. It's not about feeling the external. It's about being and connecting and coming home to you, so that anything that you then feel as a result flows through you rather than impacts you. It moves through you. And then that doesn't need any defensive actions. It's the age-old saying, right? Truth doesn't need defending. Your truth doesn't need defending and I really feel that in my chest. Again, sitting with that, it's an emotional week. It's an emotional week. When you are in your fullest light, when you are truly open to yourself, which is, hey, different every minute. So you can be open in this moment, and then something will come along and it'll open you more and open you more, because we're continually expanding. So don't try and figure it all out and think that's it, that's as open as I'm ever going to be, because life makes us grow, right? But in that moment, when you are at your fullest, when you are as open as you can be, which is different for everybody, when you feel safe enough to be open, there's no point stretching beyond your capacity or putting yourself in vulnerable positions. When you feel safe enough to be who you are, you don't need to defend anything. You don't need to protect anything. You're you. And that is guardianship in its own right. That's the potential this week. Okay. Monday, Justice card. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Overall, gosh, I haven't felt that for a while. There's huge potential for healing this week, but we must recognize where we are, okay, and align with where we are. Admit where we are, take responsibility with where we are, see ourselves fully with where we are. Overall, we have the Three of Swords, and there's a lot of heart pain here. There's a lot of heart pain that has come from separation. With the Three of Swords, yes, of course it can be separation. Of course it can be relationship breakdowns. It can be, heart problems. It can be all of those things. However, it's three swords. It's the mind. It's the element of air. So it is the unknown as well. What happens when we're in the space of the unknown? How connected do we stay to our own heart, or do we separate from that? The Three of Swords can also be the Christ consciousness. So it all depends this weekend on the perspective that we're going to have and where that comes from. Can we come back to our heart space in every moment? That doesn't mean that the pain isn't going to be there. Sometimes we leave our heart space because it can be so bloody painful. So what do we need to keep coming back there? Sometimes we may need to leave. We may need a breather from that. Whether that's relationships that are so, I've 3-3-3-3, whether that's relationships that are so heart expansive, they can be intense, whether that's grief that can be so devastating, we can't see a way out of it. We may need a break from that. That can be fulfilling the need of our heart as well. So really being honest and truthful with where you're at. An example, yesterday, going to the cemetery, going down to my mother's grave, my husband was going through his own things, but I couldn't be around it. And it wasn't personal. It wasn't about changing his behavior or his process, but acknowledging what I could be around and what I could hold space for in that moment. With my heart being as open as it was, I couldn't. I just couldn't. So being honest with that. Some people may not take that easy. That may encourage other people's hearts to open to your situation or to things that they may have been avoiding themselves, and that's their process. This week, not taking on board more than your own as a distraction, as a inherent reaction, When our heart is open, it could be like a sponge as well. It's not about protecting the heart, but allowing the heart to radiate. So ensuring that you find a space where you can be that open. Or being aware that life will provide opportunities for that, if it isn't already. Okay. On the Monday, very, very important to acknowledge where we are. So on the Monday, we have the Justice card, and I'm not surprised to see that personally for myself because it is the card that I'm traveling with. But I'm also not surprised to see it because it's also the energy that is coming through. So acknowledging wherever we may be in our process is aligned perfectly with what is going on. It may not feel that way because it's about restoring harmony. It's about allowing life to shift us, to knock us, and keep coming back to the center of the self. How do we do that? Respecting where we've been. In this card in particular, I love the fact, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, if I can hold it up close enough. In her one hand, she has the scales. This is the justice that we all know, right? In the other hand, she has a pomegranate. You can't quite see that, but a pomegranate. And her hand actually has no flesh on it, no bones on it, just tendons. And that's reminiscent of the High Priestess. Justice is the sister of High Priestess. So it is acknowledging all those dark underworld journeys that we've done and how they have stripped us bare, but how we have returned with the seeds of that potential in the pomegranate. You know, for those that know the story of Persephone, she eats a seed of the pomegranate, so she stays in the underworld for 6 months of the year. And there is one school of thought that that was done from not knowing, but there's also the school of thought that it was done from knowing, that we actually conceive, we eat, we consume what it is we are creating, and having awareness for that, having responsibility for that, knowing that that's going to form part of the journey to the underworld and the release of anything that stands in the way of who we truly are. This week, particularly on the Monday, feeling into anything that is occurring as an opportunity to restore balance by reminding us who the fuck we are. Okay, so yes, my indecisions, my low self-esteem has come with on my mother's birthday, who is continuously creating in the background a reminiscence of up you get. Look at everything that's happened. Yes, you may be feeling uncertain, but that doesn't mean that you don't do this. It just means that you carry that wisdom with you and acknowledge where you're acting from or reacting from. The top of this card, with the Justice card, we do have the Wheel of Fortune right at the top. Yeah, so this is all guided by change. This is all guided by the union of fate and fortune together. This is all part of the experience and part of the shifts that are necessary. She stood between, obviously, the pillars of severity and mercy. She isn't involved in either. It's not about making things hard. It's not about things being negative. It's not about things being positive or making light of a situation. This is the middle road that can only be walked from inside, from the journeys that we have traveled. And remembering those helps us to remember ourselves. That's why she has the harvest wreath around her around the middle part of her body, around her sacral, around her emotions, around her creative core from now until August the 1st, from now until Lamass. Again, August the 7th is when I'm doing that creative expression session. There are only 10 spaces, but from now until Lamass, it is an opportunity to look at what we've harvested with ourselves, with all these deep journeys that have occurred. When we reflect, we integrate. Simple as. On the Tuesday, there feels an essence of running out of time here with the Seven of Swords, and it is an illusion. So we have a choice. We can allow this feeling of running out of time that is a mental illusion. You know, I have to get this right. I have to organize this. It's time that I was over this, through this. Why is this still occurring? We can let that run away with us, or we can just nurture that wild fight or flight reaction within, because that really is all it is. 7 is endurance. So again, going back to everything that you've endured, but acknowledging that when we do so, that may bring up remnants of the experience. That is where it's our opportunity to say to our body, yes, you went through that. Yes, that got you that strength, and I need to go back to reclaim that part of my soul, part of my wisdom, part of my learning. But we're not going to reclaim the pain. Settle that inner wild, inner child, Salka, whatever you want to call it, that light within you by nurture. keeping it warm, basic needs, comfort, food. Take care of yourself. When your mind feels as if it's going to run away with itself, particularly on the Tuesday, hold space. Do what you need to feel safe. The mind will come back. These ideas will come back. Anything that's for us, right, is for us. These creative inspirations, we have time. It will come back. But we need to be in a place of receptivity. And in order to do that, we need to feel safe. On the Wednesday, we have the Ace of Wands. I keep being drawn to the Three of Swords with the Ace of Wands, and it feels as if that energy is actually rooted in a lot of the potential this week. There's a lot of heartbreak, there's a lot of grief, there's a lot of, I want to say shame, there's a lot of regret in what is occurring because of what is occurring. Being very aware of that this week, I was going to say this morning. Okay. Excuse me. I'm looking at the green in the picture above, in the teal-like energy in the picture above, taking some time this morning on the Monday, but also on the Wednesday, to really feel what energy you're working with. Is it an open heart, or is it the reasons that the heart has been open? They are one and the same. They are both sides of the wand. They are both sides. They're that pillar of severity and mercy. But where can you find a middle ground between it? Yes, things happen. They open us up. Then, ironically, more ideas will come through, more creative expression will come through, and so will the fear that things will happen again. So how can we, it's not about shrugging them all off. It's not about ignoring them. It's not about separating from the heart that can be quite fearful sometimes because of things that have happened. How can we find that middle approach? How can we gently put our feet back in the water? How can we gently open to love, or gently open to new opportunities, or gently open to life, when for so long, for so many, myself included, there has been great losses with that? How can we honor what we've been through, but continue to move forward as well? The opportunity comes on the Wednesday, and it is a new energy here. So that is the key. That's the emphasis. It will feel new. It will feel different. It may very well be nothing that you have planned on the Wednesday. It will create a spark within you. It will bring peace and an opening of the mind here. The body will feel it. My whole tummy just it will feel, it doesn't feel harsh, it doesn't feel, normally the Ace of Wands is quite a bolt, spark, divine inspiration. It doesn't feel that. It feels as if, and that's important, how does it feel? It feels as if it's not something we haven't already known, wanted, longed for, but how we approach it changes, or needs to change, on the Wednesday. On the Thursday, that gives us the Seven of Cups. And when I feel into the Seven of Cups here, even though it's emotional, there's a lot of mind higgledy-piggledy-ness. There's a lot of things to distract. There's a lot of things drawing our focus on the Thursday. For me personally, it feels important to acknowledge the turtle down here, the tortoise, to slow down. That doesn't mean that the actions don't get done. If anything, when we slow things down, our vision expands, our potential expands, our energy expands, our connection expands. And what we find ourselves doing is less. Less is more on the Thursday. And that actually makes things clearer. That helps us to regain focus. That actually gets more done because we're more aligned. We're more committed to what it is we're trying to achieve. We're embodying our intentions rather than them being something out there that we're trying to figure out. We're becoming them. But slow down on the Thursday. Now, it doesn't, for some that may mean slowing down your actual actions, but slowing down your energy, slowing down your mind, pausing, breathing, taking time to reconnect to that heart space as much as possible on the Thursday is going to be really important, particularly as there's so many, I was going to say distractions, but opportunities. Once we've come back home to the original idea from a different perspective, there's so many opportunities, and it could be those multitude of opportunities that has actually been making us feel as if we're not, it's not worthy, not capable. There's a big difference between what we feel capable of and what we're worthy of. Okay, so capability comes from experience, worthiness comes from the view we have of ourselves. There may be ideas that come in on the Thursday that are so vast, quite rightfully so, where we see ourselves presently, there may be some steps to put in. We may feel as if it's a bit too much for us based on where we are, of course, because when we create, we're experiencing what we create, and we learn and we gain wisdom from everything that we create, you know. But if we get that confused with esteem, self-esteem and self-worth, we may not go on to actually create anything on the Thursday. So being aware of that. On the Friday, if in doubt, pause. We have the Four of Swords here, and the original wild energy of the Tuesday, if given chance to rest and recuperate, will become the very thing that allows us to take stock of what is going on. If we can give our gnawing energy, our uncertain emotions, space to be heard, to be felt, they become certain. They're no longer hidden, they're no longer silenced, they're no longer deafened, and they can actually become strengthened and lead the way on the Friday, meaning that we end up doing a lot less physical work. And one of the things I'm being drawn here, I look at the card and I think there's so much on here. There's mountains, there's wolves, there's the feminine, there's blood ties, there's ancestry, there's, lines in the sand on the Friday. There's so much going on, so much change happening on the Friday. But what I'm being drawn to is the fact she's taken her shoes off. She's laying down on the ground. She's at peace. And why is she at peace? Yes, of course, she's supported by the ancestors. Yes, of course, there's wisdom in the journey before her and the one that has been. Yes, of course, she's held present by her own wilderness here. But I don't know if you can see that. In her shoe is the candle. In her shoe is the path and the light forward. In the steps that she takes, she knows she can pause because she has that wisdom of knowing that every step she takes will lead her where she needs to go on the Friday. On the Saturday, we have the Three of Wands. And here, even though this character is sending out information, wanting to see the bigger picture, there's still so much knowledge coming back in. So whatever we send out on the Saturday, expect to be returned. That is linked to Saturn and karma. I really, really feel that on the Saturday. Being aware of that. Acknowledging the bigger picture of how much impact our energy actually has and being responsible for that. I've just seen a bird fly by outside my window in the camera as well, and I'm being drawn. There's a mark. There's a mark on my picture in front of me. So really taking stock on the Saturday with what you're sending out. Again, realigning with your intention and allowing it to come back. It's not about pausing and allowing it to come back. It's acknowledging that the moment we send something out, we're building whatever's going to come back. It's an ongoing process. So we may find ourselves on the Saturday in a place of waiting, but acknowledging inaction for the action that it is. Acknowledging that when we pause, when we take stock, when we be with what is occurring, things start to shift. Integration. Yeah, that's what I hear on the Saturday. On the Sunday, we have the Four of Cups. I'm just thinking, is that when we're about to go into Leo? 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th. No, not quite, not quite. So we may want things to shift into the heart of the lion. We may want things to shift into a place of loyalty and open expression. And our hearts, that Three of Swords, our hearts may be so ready to be open. I said to my husband the last few days, I want something nice. I can feel it. I don't know what that nice is, but I'm in a real receptive state. My heart is so open that it wants something returned. It's yearning. And we may find that this week, that our heart is so open that it's yearning. Avoid the temptation to fill it with shit. Know your worth. Know what is actually going to fill that space. Isn't something that can be put into it, but going within and listening to it. On the Sunday, taking time with that with the Four of Cups. Yes, we may want to be in that loyal light and beauty and courage and readiness of the Leo. I get it. I'm a Leo. So not feeling ready is like, come on. Yes, we might want to be in that place where we are so certain and we are ready to commit. And, you know, with that Capricorn full moon, we've been shown where we're not. We've seen it. We know what we're needing to change and we want to be ready. But the body, the emotions, take as long as it takes, and we can push and push and push mentally. But on the Sunday, it is about pausing, being with what is being felt. The following week, I really feel something coming in, not just emotionally, psychically, intuitively, but only if we can make space for it. And there's an impatience there. I feel it myself. I don't want to wait until the following week. I want it now. Okay, so what is it you want now? Using that this week to really clarify that emotionally, because the truth of the matter is Thursday, there's still some indecisions with that. You know, Thursday being the energy of Thor's day. If we go out guns a-blazing when we don't know what it is that we actually are trying to achieve, unless you're used to working with that energy, like I am, you know, turn on the video, don't know what I'm going to talk about, but trusting the process. Unless you're used to working with the energy of chaos, unless you can really trust your ability to flow and adapt, be mindful of what you're connecting to, particularly on the Thursday. So an example, the tarot, if we're looking at the tarot just for being told what to do or predictions, if we're looking at the tarot as pictures rather than living entities, if we're looking at any energy this week as a limited restrictive perspective of what it could potentially be, we're not working with our fullest potential or its fullest potential. So give it time. And that time is going to take as long as it takes for you to open your mind, to open your heart, to open your awareness. And that's said quite strict. I appreciate that. But it's a work in progress and an inner path that only you can walk. So honor that. Allow that. Don't push that until you're ready. Trust your body. Trust yourself over anything anyone else says, myself included, because that's going to bring you home to your heart more than anything. That's going to build on your self-esteem more than anything. Self-esteem isn't about pushing yourself through something when you don't feel ready. It's about feeling safe enough to say, I'm not there yet. Can I get what I need in order to do it at the best of my ability? Self-esteem is self-responsibility, self-agency here, guardianship of your own beautiful, precious light. Okay, so we are 53 minutes, so I'm going to whiz through it, guys. We have one major arcana this week, which is justice. If you want that balance, if you want that harmony, it starts with yourself. It starts with you acknowledging who you are, what you've been through, what you're capable of. That may not be what you'd like to hear. It may be more than you're ready to hear. Regardless, your truth is your truth. It doesn't need defending. It needs accepting by yourself. That's what's going to restore the harmony. That's what's going to show you what you have gained, particularly leading into the beginning of August, and the seeds that you can then take forward as a result. You've been stripped bare. We've all been stripped bare. So allowing that vulnerability now to create something different doesn't mean the outcome is different, but the way that you create it is different. an example, with my mum passing, she's taken a lot of the ancestral trauma with her in regards to putting the needs of others before my own. And that means now the emphasis is on me. I can't say I can't do it because of X, Y, and Z. It comes back to me now. So really acknowledging the vulnerability of being stripped bare, but for the beautiful gift that it can be, by ensuring that you feel safe enough to notice it in the first place. Okay, we then have 1, 2, 3 sword cards. Double check, double check, double check. That feels quite important, particularly with Mercury in retrograde. Double check, double check, double check the facts that are going on. Am I taking this personally, or is this actually occurring? Double check, what am I hoping to achieve here? What are my intentions here? Double check where my mind is. And if there's uncertainty with the Four of Swords, pause. Look at the path you've walked. Look at the path in front of you. Look at the light that holds you throughout it all, your own. Reconnect to the heart, not the mind this week. That's what's going to bring us back out of fight or flight and into a more calm, regulated, not necessarily calm, sorry, regulated energy. And acknowledging that it doesn't mean that you're always calm, but that you're aligned with where you're at. Again, emotional regulation isn't about shutting off the emotions, it's about working with them. Okay, so align with where you're at. We then have 2 wand cards, the Ace of Wands and the Three of Wands. Newness is how we move forward. It's going to feel different. We're going to feel different. So feeling uncertain and not ready for me, it's new. That's new. Yeah, that's an invitation because that's different for me. So anything that comes through that doesn't quite feel familiar, allowing the teachings of that to come through, ensuring that you do so from a safe place. So pausing, reflecting, acknowledging what you're giving out is already coming back. So for me to work with self-esteem and self-worth, it would make sense to pick areas that I don't feel ready with so that I can build upon that, acknowledging you are creating the process that you're going through, and allow that to reinvent you, to respark you. The whole journey of knowing thyself is an ongoing journey. Anyone that says they know exactly who they are all the time, yeah. Okay, so we then have 2 cup cards. So beautiful balance between our spirit and our emotions. And that feels really, really important, that the way forward this week is to look at psychic energy for the beauty that it is. The innate intuition that is available to us is the foundation upon any actions this week. So we feel something. What does that mean to us? That's an opportunity to look at what we're going to build upon. 7 of Cups and 4 of Cups. In those moments of indecisions, pause, integrate, come back to the emotions, and wait until you feel loyal enough to commit. Wait until you feel strong enough. That doesn't mean that the answers are all going to be there and that everything is going to be okay, but it means that actually you're aligned and ready to commit to what your heart wants. This week, take time to ensure that you know what that actually is. I'll see you next week. Take care.